Couple of famous guests in the studio here, just getting everybody situated and on microphones. We're joined right now by Mary Katherine Ham, who is with The Federalist. Love that online publication, and of course a contributor at CNN. And also Guy Benson with the townhall.com. You see him on Fox News all the time. Hey, welcome into the studio.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Yeah, great to have you both in. You got an event tonight with the Show Me Institute, I know, down here at the Chess Hall of Fame, I believe, that's in the Central West End. So glad you're in town.
Yeah, we're very excited about it.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the themes of our book that we wrote together a couple of years ago called End of Discussion. We have a new edition that just came out a few months ago, just about free speech and the state of politics and our national discourse. We've done this shtick a few times around the country. We have so much fun with it. We cannot wait for tonight. And my understanding is there's a handful of tickets left through the Show Me Institute, and we're very excited. Even at a very nerdy venue like the Chess Museum or the Chess Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
You know what, Guy? If the shoe fits.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
This is what we do.
I'm probably embarrassed to say this because I've lived in St. Louis for 25 years now. I didn't know we had a World Chess Hall of Fame. Can I just tell you? I'm sorry.
Well, now we know.
I knew we had a bowling Hall of Fame at one point. I assume that's still around, but I didn't even know we had that.
Well, I'm stacking up visits for my next trip.
Yeah, no kidding.
Bobby Fischer is one name that I know.
Yes, that's a thing.
Thank you.
There you go. You need to drop some names tonight when you're there. So I'm being told here that there are a handful of tickets left. If you go to the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org. Guy, you mentioned a second ago that you're going to be discussing free speech and sort of the crackdown on that. I don't know if it relates directly to college campuses.
Sure.
But not only have we seen that across the country, I mean, Colonel Allen West came to St. Louis back in the fall, wanted to speak at St. Louis University, which is a Jesuit campus here in town. There were protesters. They wanted to shut down his right to speak because of something he'd said about radical Islam at some time, and the snowflakes couldn't stand it. I mean, we see this across the country.
Yeah, we see it, and it's not only do we see it everywhere, but it's growing, and it's actually statistically growing. The rate with which speakers are disinvited or uninvited or canceled because of protests. Because it used to be that you could just lodge a protest and say, "Hey, we don't love this speaker," and then college campuses, I think, used to have adults on them, and they would say, "Well, you know, your concerns are noted, but we're going to have this speaker." In fact, I wrote about one today, which was the 1990 commencement address of one Mrs. Barbara Bush. The First Lady was invited to campus. The students of Wellesley College said, "Oh, she was a homemaker and she's a mom, and her career is based on her husband," which is ironic given that Hillary Clinton was a famous alumna of the university. But
of Wellesley, that's right.
They objected. There was like 150 students who objected, and she said, "Well, I get where you're coming from, but I came from a different era. I think I have a lot to give." The president stuck up for her. The college president said, "You know what? This is a good discussion. We're going to have her." They had her without a protest. She gave a lovely, still quotable speech that you'll see quotes from all this week. And people were allowed to have an exchange of ideas. Look at that. We can do it.
Yeah. In fact, I've got the bite from Barbara Bush at that speech today where she talked about the fact that she hoped everyone could one day achieve what she did. Let me play that for people.
Somewhere out in this audience may even be someone who will one day follow in my footsteps and preside over the White House as the president's spouse. And I wish him well.
She got a great round of applause for that, right? Where she says, "Hope someday there's somebody in the audience who will get to do the same thing I did and serve the president. And I wish him well."
Yes.
I mean, she was really ahead of her time with that comment at Wellesley, and she knew the audience she was playing to, despite the protesters.
She wasn't.
That was great.
And if you read that full commencement address, which I recommend, or listen to it either way, there are a couple moments in there that are sort of ahead of their time feminist, where she says she sort of takes a dad to task for saying he was babysitting his own kids, and says if it's your own kids, it's not babysitting. It's sort of a lesson in you never know exactly what you're going to get, and being open to even, oh my gosh, a conservative stay-at-home mom coming to speak at your university, you may learn a few things.
Yeah, very true. We got Mary Katherine Ham and Guy Benson in the studio. They're going to be speaking tonight. You still have an opportunity to go see that. Have either of you encountered this squelching of free speech across the country, Guy?
Well, I had an interesting experience recently. I went and spoke at Brown University, which is a very left-wing Ivy League school in Rhode Island. And, I speak at campuses, often with Mary Katherine, sometimes solo, and you'll occasionally have people who object or will show up and ask negative questions, which is fine. That's part of the gig. In fact, asking challenging
We
questions
welcome
is an
that.
appropriate response to speakers that you don't like. Not showing up is an appropriate response. Picketing outside is an appropriate response.
Yeah.
Shouting down and rioting is not. And it seems like we get into this very weird Orwellian space where people are like, well, shouting other people down is another form of free speech. No, it's not. Now you're just going down the rabbit hole into something very odd. So anyway, I went to Brown, and there was a group of students who signed a manifesto prior to my appearance that said that my presence on campus was physically dangerous.
Which, being in the room with him right now, you can probably understand.
You can. I'm pretty intimidated.
No, it's like,
over here, I know.
I'm a very imposing physical presence, and so I can understand. But the students, in fairness to them, didn't know that at the time.
Okay,
they
right.
thought it was my ideas that equated to violence and white supremacy. They said, and oppression of marginalized populations. That was their argument, and therefore I should not be allowed to speak. And the group that brought me had put campus posters around of me, and they went around and defaced those and put stickers over my own face that said racism exists. So the university was concerned about how this was going to go. So for the first time ever in my experience, I had to do a security briefing before my talk where there were 4 armed police officers assigned to protect me. Remember, I'm the dangerous one, supposedly, but I'm the one getting protection potentially from students. And they gave me a designated escape route from the venue if the crowd turned on me. They said, don't go down. You could get cornered if you go down that hall. You have to go down this hall. This man will have a gun, and he'll escort you to an undisclosed location where we will have a live stream set up where you can continue your address online. I'm like, wow, this is bananas. And they said they were also checking everyone's bags as they came in for weapons. I was like, these are Ivy League liberals. They do not have guns.
They don't have guns.
So I am more likely to have a gun than I did not. But
yeah.
So it ended up going fine. There was a brief walkout of a very small number of students, which I missed. It was so small I didn't even notice it. They apparently live streamed their walkout because they're it's like Selma all over again. It's very brave.
Well, you were just marginalizing their walkout.
Right? I know, it's
You didn't
demeaning
even see it.
It's sort of oppressive for me to even mock them. But other than that, a lot of the left-leaning students stuck around, asked challenging questions. I responded, and the sun came up the next morning, and it was all fine. But it was disconcerting and sort of an out-of-body experience to be talking to a police officer, explaining which door I would need to run out of if the crowd turned on me. That was
you felt like Dana Lash at a CNN event in Florida, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's happening everywhere, and I think this is something else we need to talk about when it comes to the issue of free speech. It's not just on college campuses, but anywhere that liberals in this country disagree with you, they want to immediately label you an ist or a phobe, at which point they try to take you out of the argument. We see it everywhere. We saw it locally in a school board election here in St. Louis recently. What's your experience with that?
That's the central argument of our book and of discussion, is that the idea for liberals is to win debates by short-circuiting them, by not allowing them to happen, by saying that your views on the right, center-right, even libertarian, are off limits, they're dangerous, they're physically violent in some way, and we cannot countenance them. And so when you clear the field of everyone who disagrees with you, it's quite easy to win an argument.
Sure.
And one of the things we argue in End of Discussion is, look, the left does this, and we have to ask ourselves, do we want to play the same game? Because there can be a tendency to go, well, if they're going to demagogue us, we'll demagogue them. And we argue that's not a winning, we're not going to win that battle. They're always going to be able to ratchet up further than we are. And it's just bad for speech and for genuine debate, because you don't actually get to have a discussion about points when you're calling each other racists and sexists. So,
yeah, I know. I mean, that's, to us, it is primarily a problem on the left, and this is quantifiable in a number of ways. Jonathan Haidt, who's a left-leaning professor at NYU, who's done great work on this, who's very concerned about his side's issue here, and he founded something called Heterodox Academy to push back against it. They've done a lot of work on this. Because there are some denialists on the left. It's like, oh, this is just, they're taking a few weird examples from Berkeley and blowing it out of proportion. This is sort of a figment of the right-wing fever dream, and that's just not the case. The reason that we mostly lay it at the feet of the left, because it's not just on the left. The right does this as well to the other side and amongst ourselves. The left, it's more of a problem in our view is because they control and dominate the taste-making institutions in America for the most part. The media, the academy, and popular culture. So their amplification effect far exceeds ours.
Yeah, it's a great point. Listen, Guy Benson, Mary Katherine Ham, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you in.
Thank you for having
This is
us.
great.
I'm looking forward to it. And folks, there's still a few tickets available. Go to showmeinstitute.org. It's going to be at the Chess Hall of Fame, which we just found out existed tonight over in the Central West End. You can go to the website and get more details on that. And you can hear them. They're going to open the doors at around 5:30. Right, and the event is at 7, I believe, tonight there at 6? I'm sorry, 6. So there you go, showmeinstitute.org.
There's booze, apparently.
Is there? Wow.
Makes everything better.
That cinches the deal.
Including
Guy,
us.
Mary Katherine, thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, quick break, 314